Okay, squash and stretch. Something like that. So we'll start with a new composition. 1920 by 1080 square pixels, 24 frames, looking good. Duration is going to be 10 seconds. Okay, so let's create some background first by going to Layer, New, Solid. And that looks good. And then let's create another New, Solid. And a little darker, so it looks like now we have. I'm going to move that by holding Shift. I'm going to grab that layer and drag it down. So it's kind of like we have a floor to our scene. Let me change that solid color a little bit. There we go. That's looking good. Okay, I'm going to lock those two. So I'm going to start by creating a layer, new shape layer. We're going to use this to, it's going to be our bouncing ball. Now notice when I clicked on nothing happened. You see this little guy in there. I'm going to go down to our palette here and open this. Open up our layers. You see where it says add. I'm going to click on add, click on ellipse, go to add, click on fill. So now we have this little red sphere. What I want is to open up the transform palette. You're going to see we have anchor point, position, scale, rotation, opacity. The only thing we need to be concerned with at the moment is anchor point, position, and scale. So if I close that and I click on A, you'll notice my anchor point opens up. If I hold down Shift, I'm going to hit P, Shift, S. So now I have anchor point, position, and scale. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my little red sphere to the top of the screen. And as you saw in the example, the circle is going to fall from the top, go down to the bottom, and have a little bit of bouncy squishiness. Like a rubber ball. Okay. So what we need to do, if I hold down the space bar, you see I get the little little hand. I can just move that. There we go. So what I want is this anchor point is in the center. I want it to be at the top. And as it falls down to the bottom, the anchor point's going to move to the bottom of the circle. So I'm going to keyframe my anchor point, my position and scale. I'm going to take my anchor point, I'm going to type in -50 on the right side. And you'll see the anchor point move to the top. And I'm going to drag this up to there. Looking good. So the first thing it's going to do is, before it actually drops, for about, I'm going to say like 4 frames, what I want is the ball to sort of like stretch a bit. So I'm going into my scale, I'm going to unlock the scale, and I have my width, and I have my height. So if this started to fall, it would start to stretch downward a little bit. So what I'm going to do is make that 120. And then for the width, I make it 80. Because whatever happens on one side, we have to sort of not have the opposite, but if I'm adding 20 to the height, then I need to subtract 20 from the width. So everything has to stay in proportion. So what's going to happen is this guy's going to be stretching a little bit. And right when he gets to about here, I want him to fall to the bottom of the ground. And we'll say probably about 1 second. Okay. So to be on the safe side here, I'm going to, when I get to my 4 frames, I'm going to keyframe everything again. Go 1 full second. Let's keyframe everything again. I'm going to pan out a little bit so I can see this. I'm going to switch the anchor point now from -50 to +50. You'll see it kind of pops up. And then I'm going to take my position and I'm dragging it down to the bottom. Like so. So what's happening is, whoops, a little bit of boo-boo there. This has to be negative 50. And this has to stay negative 50 as well. So he's stretching a little bit, then he falls. And as he's falling, you see the anchor point is moving as it falls. So once I hit the bottom ground here, what I want is the ball to squish down a little bit. So I'm going to go up about, let's see, about 4 frames. I'm going to keyframe my scale, and I'm going to change it from 80 to 120 to 150, 80. Or not 80, excuse me, 150 and 50. There we go. So when it hits, it goes, it really squishes. Then what I'm going to do is go up another 4 frames, and I'm going to keyframe it again. And I'm now going to make this 50 and 150. It's falling, it's going, whee! Go up another 4 frames. Then we're going to make it 120 and 80. So we're going to be gradually bringing the numbers closer to 100. Another 4 frames. Then we're going to make this 90, 110. Go up another 4 frames. Keyframe it. We'll make it 105 and 95. And then another 4 frames, which takes us up to 2 seconds, and we'll make it 100 and 100. If I go to fit to frame, put this down a little bit, and take this little guy, the work area, and move it over to the left. That way, when I render, okay, so as I'm looking at that, I can see as it's falling, I want it to be a little faster when it's falling. So instead of going to 1 second, why don't we make it go from 4 frames to, let me say right about 14. So if I select all my frames, hold down Shift, and drag them over, it'll snap to that position. Good, looking good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is add in some what's called easy ease. Starting with the scale, if I just select all my frames and I right click, go to keyframe assist, easy ease. You'll notice all the little diamonds turn into what it looked like hourglasses. So that adds a little smoothness to it, looking good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the 2 frames of position where it actually starts to fall. I'm going to keep easy ease those as well by selecting the 2 keyframes, right clicking, keyframe assist, easy ease. Then what I'm going to do is go into this thing called the graph editor. I'm going to click on that, and you'll see I get this little thing with some Bezier handles. If you don't see that, go down to the bottom here where this little choose graph type and options is, click on that, and make sure you're on speed graph. Okay, so what I want is for the ball as it's falling to be, starts kind of slow and then it picks up speed, so by the time it's just about to hit the ground, it's pretty fast. Test that. Good. Now, if I want to have the bounce when it hits be a little quicker, I can close up these keyframes. If I select these keyframes and then hit Option, and then I can push them closer together. There we go. So once again, it's selecting the last keyframes of the scale after it hits the ground, holding down the Option key and grabbing the last keyframe, clicking, and dragging towards the left, and it'll pull the keyframes closer together. That way, you get a little bit more of a and you can see it pops up a little bit when it moves there. So I'm going to try and change that by changing that keyframe. That feels a little better. Yeah, there we go. So what I did there is I took this first keyframe for the scale that was eased, and I pulled down the Command key and then click on that keyframe, and it turns it back to a regular keyframe with no ease on it. Okay. Now, let's say I wanted to have a piece of type fall and bounce. Well, I already created this animation with the circle. So what I can do, let's name that layer, by the way, by clicking on it and hitting return. And then I'm going to type in circle, if I spell it correctly. Circle. Okay. So I can take a piece of type by hitting the type tool. Click. I'm just going to write down text. What I'm going to do is I want to make sure that this text here, as I take the anchor point, I'm going to hold down the Y key on the keyboard, drag it so it's at the bottom of my piece of text. Okay, I can take this text let me rephrase that. I want to take the anchor point of the piece of text, and first I want to have it to the top because that's where the anchor point is on the circle. So I want the piece of text to have the anchor point the same place that the okay. So I'm going to hold down the Y key. I'm going to take that anchor point and move it to the top. Okay. So what's going to happen is I'm going to link this piece of type to the circle. The way I do that is what's called with a pick whip, which is this little squiggly little line here. See, when I scroll over, it says pick whip. Click on that, and just drag it on top of the circle. Now, you can see as I start to scroll through, the text is behaving exactly as the circle did. So what I want to do is keyframe the anchor point of the text, because I want the keyframe of the piece of text to be at the bottom of the piece of text when it hits the bottom of the floor. So what would happen is, if I did that,